Please welcome to the stage, Jill Demby Guest.
They say that life is a miracle, but growing up in my family, life was more life-threatening than miraculous. Like the time my brother tried to kill me. Even though the rifle was a BB gun, he still wanted me dead. He was 11, I was 4. Dressed in my puffy pink snowsuit in the dead of winter, Daniel set me up in our backyard as his target, carefully placing me in a bed of ivy so I had a soft place to fall once the deed was done. He was too kind for words. "Just stand there," he said, "don't move." Because he was my protector, I listened to him. Lucky for me, my protector wasn't such a great shot. He hit the trees, the ivy, or the fence. One BB actually did graze my snowsuit with a small tear, but he never mowed me down. Maybe he did have a heart, or was it a miracle? This wasn't the first time Daniel tried to off me. After being Prince of the Kingdom for 7 years, he wasn't about to let me take over the peerage. No, my brother's determination to eliminate me from the planet started much earlier, and I've got home movies to prove it. My father, obsessed with his Super 8 camera, captured every aspect of our young lives. In one movie, Daniel at age 7 is gleefully shaking me so vigorously in the pram that today he would be doing 4 years in Antelope Valley State Prison, maximum security wing. But my father, so intent on keeping the pram in the frame, kept right on filming. I began to see that it wasn't just my brother who was trying to eliminate me. My parents were in on it too. But with them, it was death by humiliation. Like the time my mother tried to toilet train me at 9 months old. In the movie, I'm seated on the potty strapped into some sort of wooden Nazi-like torture contraption. I would have had to have been Houdini to wiggle my way out of all the belts and straps and ball gags that had me strapped in. The story goes, I was so traumatized, I couldn't poop for a week. And to make matters worse, my father showed this at dinner parties because he was so proud of me for being an early adapter. Between my parents' humiliations and my brother's sadism, there was no place to hide and no one to turn to for protection. I prayed daily for miracles. I felt my only way out was to somehow become invisible, to dissolve into a tiny speck where no one could see me. But being the tallest kid in the class, being invisible wasn't really an option. I was in a constant state of anxiety. I never knew when the next bomb would drop, but finally it did. Daniel blew up his chemistry set in the attic, singeing my eyebrows in the process. I was watching, perhaps too closely. So you might be wondering, where were my parents? They were working. I had 2 working parents at a time when no one had 2 working parents. My father was in the insurance business, and my mother had a fancy job in the fashion business in New York City. She was too busy buying up Chanel to attend a bake sale, PTA meeting, or even to take me to the pediatrician for some unexplained rash. If a friend couldn't play after school because they had a doctor's appointment, I was jealous. Jealous of an appointment where you could possibly get stuck with a needle. I often asked to tag along to see how this whole parenting thing I heard so much about was really, how it really worked. Given Daniel's reckless behavior and concerned calls from the school principal about my depression, my parents decided to hire a nanny. Finally, miracle of miracles, my parents were on my side. Enter Kinga, my new protector, a larger-than-life, fresh off the boat, 55-year-old burly Polish woman. She wore shabby but professional-looking tiny print floral dresses, mid-calf in length, with those orthopedic-type lift shoes that male hairdressers wore. To top it off, she had a huge black mole on her chin, which had a big black hair in it that you could not help but look at. And if you got too close, you could get royally pricked with that single hair. She looked like a Russian army drill sergeant in drag. Kinga's special talent was that she cooked scrumptious Polish delicacies from scratch. Every night she seduced my parents with steaming bowls of krupnik and golumkis, barley soup and cabbage rolls. So my parents felt sated and confident in their new hire. Why my brother thought Kinga wouldn't notice that he'd stolen an entire tray of her freshly baked jam kolaches was anyone's guess. Once he made off with the goods, he fled out to the back porch where he would stuff himself and me with the stash. Hearing Kinga's booming footsteps stomping in our direction, Daniel would dump the batch in my lap, and apoplectic, Kinga cursed me in Polish, threatening to whip me on my bare legs with her kitchen towel. Now Kinga was in on the plot to eradicate me too. She was the Cruella de Vil of nannies, which is not to say that she wanted to make a coat out of my skin, but only to say she was downright mean, and you never knew what would set her off. For example, she hated our dog Lucky. Admittedly, Lucky had an unpredictable vicious streak, much like Kinga herself, and he would sometimes snap your arm in a clamp hold if you simply reached out to pet him. But if Kinga tripped over the dog while he was sleeping, she'd broom him down the basement steps and lock him down there for the day without water. She also assaulted my friends. If she didn't like the way my friend was chewing her peanut butter and jelly sandwich, she might yank her ponytail or give her a pinch. When my mother came home from work, I'd race to the door. I'd race to the door for cover, detailing Kinga's deviant behavior, while my mother listened and sipped her scotch. But she never really believed me. Jill, they do things differently in Poland. What had Kinga put in those golumkis? Whatever it was, my parents were blinded until the clothespin incident. One day, Lucky made off with 4 pieces of filet mignon that were thawing on the counter for dinner. Kinga flew into a rage and put a clothespin on his ear. He was yelping and running around the yard like a whirling dervish in circles when my mother miraculously pulled into the driveway for a surprise lunchtime visit. Finally, she got to witness the horror firsthand. Needless to say, that was the end of Kinga. Unfortunately, it wasn't the end of my brother. One very hot summer day, Daniel pushed me out of the backyard kiddie pool and onto the driveway. I looked down and saw an empty glass jar glistening on the blacktop. I picked it up and whacked him over the head. I would be toyed with no more, and I drew the line with a pickle jar. That fall, my brother went off to college, and I became a true latchkey kid. Once I got used to the silence of an empty house, I began to relax. Free from the anxiety of daily threats, I began to create my own universe. So began the journey of becoming visible, at least to myself. I wrote a volume of erotic short stories about Eric Perlmutter, Seth Hansen, and Joel Hartley, who were the sexiest guys on the baseball team, and the only reason I went, but who had no idea who I was. I taught myself how to cook, making up crazy things like sauteed onions on ruffled potato chips, or fried bologna topped with a fried egg that I could never keep the yolk from breaking. I collected a menagerie of wounded and stray animals, a yellow-bellied sapsucker fallen from a tree, a nervous Dalmatian, a sick squirrel named Chippy that I saved from freezing to death. These were my family in the universe I was creating for myself. I later transferred this gift for healing into my relationships with men, but that's another story. In some ways, a part of me will always be that invisible latchkey kid. But the miracle of my life is that I prevailed. I'm still here, a little more than a speck, being visible and being heard, and despite my family's best efforts, I'm not dead yet.